I do think the question of fairness and equity and distribution remains a very important one. I think we also have what I believe is the greatest mistake in the economic program, which was the decision to do a significant tax cut that benefited largely the wealthiest and the major corporations, instead of putting that revenue into infrastructure. From the longer term, I think the economy suffers. And the fact is that the tax cut did not work according to what it was supposed to do. It was supposed to give us 3% annual growth and, through the supply side mechanism, moderate the deficit. Exactly the opposite happened with regard to the deficit. The deficit has gone way up. And by the way, I welcome some aspects of the Trump policy on both trade and the importance of looking at the impact it has on lower income Americans, and the fact that the deficit can go up without having negative consequences for the economy. I welcome Donald Trump's vindication of those longstanding liberal principles.
I guess, Congressman, and I'll get Joe involved here. My point was, Joe, for a while, the fairness narrative, plays into the income inequality, and not everyone benefits from a stock market or even from an economy that's wrong. But lately, Joe, we've seen, the unemployment rate at 50-year lows and minority unemployment at some of them historic lows, and we're seeing some of the wage gains that you would hope for when labor gets tight. You're seeing some of that happen. So even the fairness argument that Democrats have is sort of not what it used to be. And do you think that they should be running on the economy? That just seems like a tough thing. I would run on all the, they got impeachment in Russia and, Ukraine and, God, everything else they can run on. Would you run on the economy? Is that the best advice, Joe?
Me? Joe, I wouldn't run on the economy if I was a Democrat. I mean, you could talk about income inequality, but we all know that in capitalism there are winners and losers. And at the end of the day, look at the poll numbers. CNN just did a poll recently that shows that something like 76% of Americans think the economy is not just good, but very good. That's like a 9% increase since last year. It's the highest number since the year 2001. It means that a lot of Americans are very, very confident about the direction in which the economy is headed. And that's good news for the president. It makes it hard for Democrats to run against the president, to run against his tax cuts. The only thing they have to offer in its place, it seems, if you're Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders, are these big government programs that call for massive spending and raising taxes. Elizabeth Warren has said she wants to raise taxes on the very wealthy, and Bernie Sanders, of course, would like to raise taxes around the board. And the downside for Democrats, I think, is significant in that regard. I think that a lot of Americans, even if they don't like what the president has said in some other areas, will like their pocketbook. They like the fact that the economy's headed the right direction, that the recession fears have gone in the opposite direction, and that the president has made good on the trade agreements, on lowering taxes, on lowering regulation, on lowering the rate of unemployment, all the things that economists look at and that Americans care about. He's been able to at least say thus far that he's succeeded in all those areas. So I don't think Democrats have a strong...
Yeah, thanks. I thought you were finishing up. But Congressman, would you ascribe any of the economic facts that Joe said, whether you consider them facts or not, but just the perception that things are going pretty well in this country? Did any of it have to do with deregulation that President Trump ushered in?
No, I think it has.
Lower corporate taxes has not helped extend corporate profitability and our standing in the world in terms of being able to compete. None of that helps?
Let me break this up. Yes, the Trump program has helped. He is the uber Keynesian. What we have under Trump is a vindication of demand-side economics. The deficit has gone way up. Spending is up both in the military and domestically. Tax revenues are down, so the deficit goes up. And yeah, I do give, ironically, it's not what Trump said we were going to get. And what we haven't got with regard to the corporate taxes, that has not produced the significant productivity increases. Productivity is lagging. There's a good short-term boost here, but it's not good for the economy long-term. Secondly, I would say Mr. Watkins inconsistently quotes the polls. Yes, the polls do say that a lot of people think the economy is going well, but he then denigrates the question of raising taxes on the wealthy. But the polls show a great deal of support for that. There's a specific microeconomic argument, by the way, which is health care. Now, I believe that this Medicare for all is a mistake politically as well as administratively, but on the question of protecting what was done under President Obama in health care and expanding it, especially after the Republicans have succeeded in getting a court to say they're going to maybe throw out the whole thing, that's a very good issue for Democrats. The question of protection of people with pre-existing conditions, the extension of Medicare. In a number of states, Republican governors who were opposed to accepting the Medicaid extension were overridden by referenda. Right. So I do think the issue of fairness, and the polls show this, they remain very significant. There are other issues as well, but the economy is a mixed bag.